This is Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium.
Today's guest is veteran metal guitarist, bassist David K. Starr, known for Vicious Rumors, CHASTAIN, WildeStarr, and now his solo album. It's a pleasure to have you on, David.
Thanks for having me on, Kath.
Oh, yeah, this is so exciting. I really got into, looking into your career and all of the things that you have done. I'm an 80s girl, so I remember Vicious Rumors. And, you really have a big fan base there. I have to give you so much credit, though, because it's amazing speaking to someone and then you go back in time and then you realize that you're still putting the music out. Not just putting music out, but it's amazing music. I've listened to the music that you're promoting now. It's a solo album. It's very near and dear to your heart. So I can't wait to dive in and have a discussion about how your life has been going.
Sure. I'm ready to talk.
Very good. So I know the fan base knows you from Vicious Rumors. I just wanted to touch on a little bit about your earlier life, because a lot of times when I speak with musicians, they come from a musical family, or they're the only one in the family that decided to do music. So what is the earlier story about you before you even got involved in Vicious Rumors?
Meaning life story?
Well, how you got into music primarily.
Well, I was always a music listener from a very young age. My sister and I both used to collect 45s and of the whatever the top hits were at the time, top 40 hits. And I also started getting into buying albums. I remember buying Led Zeppelin 3 when it came out. I don't know when that was, 1970 or 71. I'm 64, so I've been around quite a while. But it wasn't until I think it was my sophomore year of high school, this guy I knew down the street was telling me about Kiss. And he said, "Oh, if you haven't heard these guys, you got to check them out." And I honestly didn't really know any of their music. I knew the image. And he loaned me Kiss Alive. And it basically just changed the whole trajectory of my life. I got an electric guitar, and I wanted to be that made me want to become a musician. Before that, I wanted to go into the Navy like my dad. So Kiss Alive changed my life, or as my dad would say, it ruined my life.
That I can understand from him. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So Kiss Alive, that's interesting. So around, you would be looking at maybe, were you age 17 or 18 at the time?
This would be 76, so I was probably 15 or 16 years old.
Wow, that's amazing. So Kiss Alive, they were really hot back then, so everyone would have known about them. What did you find the connection with? Because I know you ended up becoming a guitarist and a bassist. What was it about Kiss, not just the sound of it, but which one of the artists were you drawn to, one in particular?
I think it was just the whole visual extreme and the loud bombastic sound. That album basically, almost everybody from my generation was influenced by that album. I mean, it was just really pivotal for somebody my age group, my generation. It's interesting when you think back. Today we get bombarded with so much visual and audio stuff that you can find on the internet, but back then none of this stuff existed. And when a friend loaned me Kiss Alive, all I had was the album cover to look at. Or I'd go buy Hit Parader magazine or Cream or Circus magazine, and you'd get all your news and photos 3 weeks after the event happened. So yeah, it was just, I was captivated by the album cover of those four guys on stage just looking absolutely crazy. It just moved me. Something grabbed a hold of me and it didn't let go.
Well, I'm glad for us in the music community, I'm glad that you discovered Kiss, because your life would be a lot different, and you are a complete talent, so it's great. How did you feel when you actually felt like you landed the band, to get involved in a big band? How did you feel at that point? It's not a basement band. It's not a garage band. You're actually becoming a well-known band. So that must have been quite a reveal for you.
Going back to my time in Vicious Rumors.
Yeah, that being your first official band.
Yeah, that was the first real big break. I mean, I played in some bands before that Yeah, I never even mention interviews because I don't really, every musician played in half a dozen bands before they got into, a real band. And Vicious Rumors was my first real band where we signed a recording contract and we toured. We started out on an independent label called Shrapnel Records. Then we did 2 records with them. Then we got signed to Atlantic Records in 1989, which was pretty exciting. And we had videos on MTV and the backing of a big label behind us. We toured the world. It was pretty exciting. It was a 9-year run for me. The initial time I came back sometime later to do another album, but the original time was 84 to 93. And it was a pretty exciting time. I got to do with that band a lot of things that people dream about doing when they pick up the guitar. Very fond memories of most of it. It's most people who just play, no matter how talented they are, they could be the greatest talent in the world, but if you're not in the right place at the right time, you don't have the connections, it can make all the difference in the world. So I was very grateful for all being able to do all those amazing things that I know. Personally, I know some really talented musicians who I grew up with in the circle of musicians in the San Francisco Bay Area who never got to do anything. And I felt bad for them. I go, wow, these guys are more talented than me. And I'm on Atlantic Records running around all over the planet. Where's the justice? I mean, I know I'm talented, but it's like acting or anything else in the entertainment industry. It's a crapshoot. You just never know how it's going to pan out. But for the most part, it was a pretty exciting time, especially when you go into foreign countries and getting up on stage in front of thousands of people and people asking for your autograph and people saying your records. It's interesting just to fast forward today. That first Vicious Rumors album, Soldiers of the Night, came out in 1985. So those albums go back 40 years. They're still in print. I still get royalty checks every year, which is nice. But I get emails and social media comments from people saying they still listen to those albums and that the music that I've made in my career is part of the soundtrack of their life. That's something you just can't put a price tag on. It's just an amazing feeling. It's the same thing that I would say if I met whoever, like somebody from Kiss or Judas Priest or Thin Lizzy or my favorite bands. I said the same thing to them. So to go to the next generation and then I'm getting those same kind of accolades. It's pretty amazing. It's a pretty wonderful feeling.
Yes, well, I understand being a fan of music. When you do get to meet an artist and you do get to give them your feedback, you do sometimes see a surprised look on their face. And it's interesting because I'm good friends with David Reese. He started out with Accept and then he went into Bangor Choir. And, in speaking with him over the years, he knows that I would jog to his Cadence album with Bangor Choir. And he tells so many people about that, one of his fans would jog to the music. But he realized why I told him that because of the way the songs are on that album. They would make a loop or they would make a circle on my journey, So it is so true. But you were there at a very important time. You were there in the mid 80s. And as you know, when you talk about 84 to 93, the world of music, especially in the metal world, really changed from 93 and after that because of the grunge impact that kind of came on. So a lot of bands got shifted. Was that what happened with your band?
Yeah, things changed. I remember we were in Europe, I think it was 1991. And I came back, and when we were setting up gear in the whatever club we were playing at or venue we were playing at, the sound guy would be playing music over the PA system in the club or the venue. And I'd be saying to myself, who the hell are these bands that these guys keep playing? And I didn't know who they were. They were bands like Nirvana and
Soundgarden, probably.
Soundgarden. Some other bands that I'm drawing blanks on now, but yeah, it almost seemed like overnight things changed. It was really, really weird. We had signed a 7-year deal with Vicious Rumors with Atlantic Records, and they cut us after 3 albums because the whole industry just turned on its head. And all of a sudden, the music that we were making, all the record labels started rushing towards this other sound. It is what it is. It's frustrating. in the long run, it seems like a lot of those bands that seemed to took over kind of fizzled out, and the bands that Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, whoever, the legendary bands that were big at that time, they may have gone through some lean years, but they bounced back and survived, whereas a lot of those grunge bands didn't. So I guess you could say, was it a flash in the pan or, a little fad or something? I don't know. That's what happened.
Yes. Well, to get 3 albums out of your contract is pretty good, considering how long it takes to make an album for some bands.
A lot of the bands that got signed around that time usually would do one album and got canned, let go from their contracts. We at least survived 3 albums, 2 studio albums, and then a live album in Tokyo. So yeah, well, a lot of the bands got dropped after one record around that time. We survived 3. So was it everything we'd hoped? Did it pan out everything? No, but it was still a great time, and we made some great music, and real proud of the stuff we did.
I just want to reflect on playing during that period of time, because now just going to see a band is a different experience than seeing a band in the 80s. Equipment has changed and venues have changed. So it's probably easier to play now on stage than it was back then. Would you agree in regards to setting up stage or having to fall in on some of these venues back then?
Equipment sure has changed. I primarily been doing studio work for the last 30 some odd years, but I know that, like a lot of things technologically, they get smaller. A lot of guys I know who are touring use some of these amp modeler deals that are, where traditionally you'd see a band with walls of Marshall stacks on either side of the drum riser. And now a lot of guys are just using these small digital amp modelers to get everything out of their sound. So, technology is changing. Like I said, everything keeps getting smaller and more compact to try to do the same thing. But I'm primarily a studio musician now, so people ask me about if I'm touring anymore. To be honest with you, I haven't played live since I think last time I was on stage was 2014. So part of that had to do with other things. I got clean and sober over 20 years ago. The environment that I lived in and thrived on, I just got sick of it. Part of it, I got sick of it. Part of it, I felt it was best mentally and physically for me to just remove myself from that environment where you've got a drink in your hand or the drink in both hands. And I just got tired of it.
Well, thank you for sharing that, and congratulations on your sobriety. Yes, I understand how the industry, and you have a group of friends and then your circles get bigger and bigger. So, a lot of times people find themselves in these circles where they realize that their life has really greatly changed. Sometimes you have to make a change for the change that occurred originally.
True.
Yeah. So I want to just touch on moving forward. Like you said, you do a lot of studio work. Did you want to speak about any of the other bands that you were involved in?
Primarily, after I left Vicious Rumors, a few years later, I hooked up with David Chastain, who's a pretty well-known neoclassical, I hate that word, shredder, but he hired me to play on one of his albums, In an Outrage, that came out in 2004. And I think I appeared on a couple of compilations and greatest hits albums too that maybe were released overseas in Europe and Japan. But that was an interesting experience. That was the first album I ever did digitally that was done remotely. I never met David or ever played with him. The only time I met him was when he flew out to California to do the video for the single Bullet from a Gun. And that's the only time I met him. And when I did meet him, I'd finished the album 6 months prior because it was all done digitally over the internet. That was my first experience with that. So that was kind of interesting. After I got clean and sober in 2005, I started writing songs with my wife. And part of my regimen for trying to keep myself basically alive, because I had a really bad drinking problem, was to practice the guitar and write songs every night. And I told my wife, who's an amazing singer, I said, let's start writing some songs together. So to make a long story short, we ended up doing 3 incredible albums together. I've made some really, really outstanding albums in my career, but if I had to pick a favorite, those three are the things I'm most proud of. In my early 40s, I transformed myself from everybody knowing me as the bassist, either from Vicious Rumors or Chastain, to I don't know how old I was, 42, 43, teaching myself how to play guitar and getting really good at it really quick. And then on those albums, I played all the guitars and bass myself. And when I look back on it, I don't know how I did it, but that was, I think, my reward for getting clean and sober. That was the last thing I did. We did 3 albums. They came out in, I think, 2010, 2012, and 2017 or 18. And then coming full circle to today, going solo for really my first time in my life, and singing. I've never really sang before. Yes, I sang in some crappy bands back when I was in high school, but who counts that stuff? You know, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just floundering around trying to figure out where I was going to fit in. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, at age 64, I'm singing for the first time on this new single, this new track, Not Dead Yet. And yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's been a long, strange trip.
It is very interesting. I want to circle back to you talking about making the albums with your wife, because having a partnership with someone and then having like a work relationship with them is interesting as well. So what kind of music was that? Like, what do those albums sound like?
Probably the same vein as Vicious Rumors or Chastain. It's real heavy melodic stuff like Judas Priest, Sabotage, Queensryche. Really good, and she's an incredible singer. She's on the same level as like Rob Halford or Jeff Tate. So it was really neat. And she had been frustrated throughout her life not being able to find people to. It's harder for women in this business. Guys want to play with guys, and she had a lot of roadblocks. And it really wasn't until we decided to start writing songs together that her dream of being in a band and getting to make records and stuff came to fruition. So it was pretty neat for both of us. And the results, it's really amazing stuff that we did together, especially how you consider how, I think when that first, the WildeStarr Arrival came out, it was either 2009 or 2010. I'd only been playing guitar seriously for a couple of years, 3 or 4 years. But you listen to that album and it sounds like I've been playing for 25 years. All the stars just lined up, all the planets lined up. It just worked out. I don't listen to a lot of my own music very often, but every now and then I'll pull up one of those tracks on YouTube and I'll go driving down the freeway or whatever, and I'll go, wow, man, how the hell did that happen? It's amazing.
What is the difference from one album to another? Because you did 3 albums and they're kind of separated by a few years between them. Did you move into almost storytelling with the lyrics, or they're just 3 similar albums or different?
Well, my wife wrote almost all the lyrics, I'd say 99% of them. So the second album was kind of I guess you could almost call it a concept album. I kind of hate that phrase, concept album. But the first album was called Arrival. Second album was called Telltale Heart. And a lot of the themes on A Telltale Heart had to do with Edgar Allan Poe, based around his stories like The Tomb of Ligeia and things like that. That's actually my favorite of the 3 albums, A Telltale Heart, the second one. Everything just seems to sound perfect on that record. And then the last one we did came out in 2017 or 18, I can't really remember, Beyond the Rain. It's really good too. I'm proud of all 3 of them, but if I had to pick one of them, A Telltale Heart, the second one, is my favorite.
I'm so intrigued by this because I'm a very big fan of Edgar Allan Poe. I do think that there is a very big tie between poetry and writing lyrics. So I'm really intrigued by this. Wow, I have to look at all of this. How could our audience be able to see those 3 albums? Are they all on YouTube, or how could they access that?
You can find them on YouTube, our band website, because the band really is on an extended hiatus. But you can find the albums on the internet if you do some digging. We actually still have some of them we sell. We still have CDs here we got from the record label Scarlet. You can go to scarletrecords.it, which I think was our European label. They handled, I think, the second and the third albums, and I think they're still selling the stuff. And you can find most of the stuff on YouTube as well.
Okay, cool. So your wife being a vocalist, does she do any instruments herself?
Yeah, whenever there were keyboard parts needed, she played keyboards. Not a lot of keyboards in that band, but whenever there were keyboards, she would do it. But she wrote all the lyrics and melodies and did just an amazing job. I always tell people that when people say someone's an amazing singer, to me, it's not just the what she was really amazing at doing. It wasn't just the fact that she had an amazing voice. The job of a singer is really also to create amazing melodies and write really thought-provoking lyrics. And she did all three of those things. So it's she was the total package as far as the singer goes, and it was an interesting experience. It's not, a lot of people might say like, well, what's it like working with your wife? Well, there's pros and cons because our studio would be down the hall in our home. If we had an argument about something, we walk out the door, we're still home. But the end result, though, the end result was, and there were tense times, but I think that can also breed quality. That can also breed, if we'd argue and clash about something, that would only just made it better, in my opinion. So the proof's in the pudding. You go listen to those records, and they're pretty damn rocking.
I'm so glad you took time to talk about this because I'm so intrigued by this. I'm also fascinated. A lot of times when couples decide to work together, they really realize that the work has brought their relationship to a different level. It's the work experience that they realize certain things about each other in their personalities. For what I've heard, it's brought them closer together. Would you agree?
Yeah, yes, I do think it has because it's something that will outlive us, that will last. I always say that great music is timeless. Great music has no expiration date. So yeah, it's we created 30 songs that are 4-minute works of art, and I do think that's something that will bond us together forever and live beyond us. So it's a pretty was a pretty special experience. She had a when I said the band was on hiatus, she had a stroke last year. We had been writing most. I had written most of the music for WildeStarr 4, which would have been our fourth album, and then just a whole series of. I got Parkinson's, then COVID hit. We had a couple of our purebred dogs pass away. Then we had a fire at our house here, and our studio basically was destroyed. It was just one thing after another working against us to try to get this fourth album done. And then she had a stroke last year and a half ago, and that pretty much put an end to the band. She doesn't feel like she can sing at that same level that she used to. So, and that brings us to today. But I told her I wanted to keep making music, and she's working with me behind the scenes. She directed the video for "Don't Wait for Me," and she produced and engineered the audio tracks of me in the studio playing. She's still there with me. We're still working together. It's just a little different now. But I did tell her, I said, if you ever feel you're ready to go back, just let me know, and we'll do something. So that's where that stands.
Wow, you certainly have been through a lot. It sounds like a whirlwind of different things happening to you in a very short period of time. Many times when that happens, you almost feel like you're kind of numb by it. So if we go back, your third album was around 2017, 2018, and then just 2 years later in 2020, that's when you're diagnosed with Parkinson's, around the same time as COVID. So were you stateside or were you overseas or where were you in the
Oh,
world? Because the whole world was involved with COVID.
yeah, we've been here we left the San Francisco Bay Area in 2014 and relocated to Texas. We've been in Texas for almost 12 years now, about 40 miles north of Houston. So yeah, that was a weird time. It was a weird time. One of the, one of the things that just popped into my mind is because when we were talking earlier, you had brought up COVID and then the Parkinson's, and I didn't really draw. I remember when COVID hit and I was in there with my neurologist and I said, I know this isn't really your field. What do you think's going on here? And this is when it had just spread to the US. There was, I think, a couple of cases in Washington State. And he goes, nothing's going to happen with this. It's no big deal. It's just going to blow over really quickly. And I walked out of there going, oh, okay. Well, he's an MD, he's a neurologist. He's not really dealing with contagious diseases, but he probably knows what he's talking about. And boy, was he wrong. I mean, the whole world got turned upside down. And what a crazy time that was. And it wasn't that long ago, but it seems like a million years ago, but it was really only 4 or 5 years ago.
Yes, as you speak about that, because I am in the medical community, there were a lot of people that were downplaying COVID when it first came out. I think we've learned a lot of lessons since then, that there are things, like I remember my uncle calling me up and telling me about my grandfather when he was in Spain, the Spanish flu, and about how he had to carry his mother and sister down because they were taking everyone who had died to a collection center. I mean, it was like hearing the story was like horrific while we were going through COVID. I was just like, oh my God, it's like the past and the history repeats itself,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But the timing of you being diagnosed with what Parkinson's is a chronic illness. A lot of people are not familiar with Parkinson's, but it is considered a chronic illness. And Parkinson's can affect you in different ways. And a lot of people kind of recognize Parkinson's because of Michael J. Fox. But patients that have Parkinson's have different types or levels of Parkinson's. So how has your journey been with that?
Well, it all started around 2019 or 20. I started getting some tremors and shakes in my right hand and right arm, and I procrastinate. Like a lot of people, I was a little slow on the draw getting myself to a neurologist. And in the meantime, I did a bunch of research on, what I was going through. So by the time I got to the neurologist a couple of months later, I knew something was wrong, and I figured it was probably Parkinson's. So I went in there, and yeah, he did a bunch of tests on me, and it was interesting. The tests were all at a later date. I had a DAT scan and an MRI, but before that was done, he literally just did visual tests with me. He would watch me walk up and down the hall, and he would have me raise my arms and do these kind of things that seemed like they were out of the Stone Age. And after about 20 or 30 minutes of doing these really, what I thought at the time were kind of corny tests, he said, yeah, you've got early Parkinson's. You're in early stages of Parkinson's disease. So it didn't really hit me. Like, I belong to a couple of Parkinson's groups on Facebook, and people are just devastated. And they say they want to crawl into a ball and die. And I didn't feel really anything. I was just sort of matter of fact about the whole thing. I walked out and called my wife, my daughter, and my sister, and I told them what had just happened. And yeah, I just kind of took it in stride. I'm kind of low key about a lot of things in life. I don't really get worked up. So I figured, the last thing I need to do is go crazy with this thing, because I knew, maybe I didn't know as much then as I know now, but I knew I had to stay on top of things and stay focused. So that's how it all began.
I find it interesting as you describe how you went through it, because I think that's very interesting for our audience. You did what I have seen many people do. It'll go away, or you chalk it up to it's not that bad. And a lot of times people realize that they do need to get help when things aren't going away. So you did what I explain as the human experience, because you're just being human. Like, I really hope this is not what it is, but, it'll go away. So I think what you did was the best thing. You went to see a physician and realized that this is something that can be controlled and can be monitored. And like you said, everyone has a different experience. How did you get to using this diagnosis and the changes in your life to coming about to writing the album? Because this album, I was reading a lot about your comments about this album, and you summarize it as not just being diagnosed with Parkinson's, but experiencing life, loss, and change. And I'm just really, really blown away by that because so many people are experiencing those things. So tell me about how this album came about.
Well, actually, for starters, it's not an actual album right now. It's just a single track. A lot of people have asked me, like, well, is this a promo for an upcoming album? Honestly, I don't know. Part of me was just wanted to, this idea came together about a year and a half ago about writing a song about my experiences. And being that singing and writing lyrics was really all new to me, I didn't know what to expect. And I honestly didn't know whether or not the last thing I wanted to do was like when I told my wife that I wanted to do this one song, the last thing I thought of was I want to write a whole album and sing 10 songs because I didn't know whether I could sing or not. So it's one song, standalone track, Not Dead Yet. Whether it changes and becomes an album, maybe I'll do a. I was just bagging on concept albums a while ago. Maybe I'll do a concept album around this whole thing. But it about a year and a half ago. I don't know. I really don't know what happened. I just started writing lyrics, and it coalesced, and I had some guitar riffs kicking around, and I had this idea, and it just kind of gelled together, and I played it for my wife, London, and she thought it was pretty good. So I found a bass player and drummer, Fabio and Rich Gray from Annihilator. I found them online, so they played on the track with me, and they also appear in the video. But when I first started writing this, it was kind of about me. And then the more I thought about it, the more what's the right word for, refined the lyrics and the music. I realized, I don't really want to write a song about myself. That seems sort of goofy. And who wants to hear a song about a guy bitching about his Parkinson's disease? So I realized that the Parkinson's got me started on the idea, but basically what I ended up doing was writing a song for people out there who are in a similar situation. So I never mentioned Parkinson's, or I never mentioned really anything that's makes it directed exactly towards me. I kind of sing in a broad sense about standing tall with my feet on the ground. Don't lose your perspective, stay effective, don't be messing around. I wrote it, I guess, kind of, I really don't like that word anthem, but I guess maybe I was thinking that's what I was doing. I think that term is kind of arrogant. I think it's up to if a band writes a song that ends up being called an anthem, it's up to the fans and the music listeners to call it an anthem. But I really just wanted to write something based on my experiences and then broadened it as a story that I could share for the common person who's going through hell, basically, whether it's they've got Parkinson's or cancer, or say they had a horrible car accident, or their spouse died, or heartbreak from a broken relationship. All of us have been through pain, and I took that pain and channeled it into art, which is basically what happened.
Yes, and the way you describe it is so beautiful. It's almost like a song that's wrapped in with a message of hope, you know?
Yeah. And I felt like, it's interesting because going back to where I was saying a few minutes ago about it, I never really sang before, but I really felt that this song was so personal and meaningful to me that really there was nobody else that could sing this except me. It had to be me. And I look back at my life. I'm not saying that I'm unique in any way, shape, or form other than anybody else. We all have our own unique story, but I've been heartbroken. I am sick. I have an illness that there's no cure. It's progressive. I've been homeless in the past. I lived in my car in San Francisco. I know what it's like to be hungry, to not have food, to not have money. I've been crushed. And I've had a lot of great things happen too in my life. I've had a lot of ups and downs, good and bad. And I think it just encompasses all those good and bad things that happen to us in our life, the horrible lows and the amazing highs all make us who we are today. And I think I just tried to channel all that into a positive message of hope, basically, for the listener. And I've gotten a lot of great feedback on the song. I've got a lot of compliments on social media and messages. And my favorite message so far is a friend of mine named James Kearney, who had a stroke a couple of years ago and he's paralyzed on half his side. And he said when he watched the video, listened to the song, he said it really, really hit him like a ton of bricks and really made him think. So that's, you can't put a price tag on that.
Absolutely. And it's a testimony that the mission that you set out to has really met the mission, because it is touching people. And it's not just touching people, it's touching people that are truly affected by something and whose life has a change that has impacted their current situation. And that was the mission of the song. So I think you've met that. That's really amazing. That's really a testimony to your own musical passion.
And I've never been involved in like I said, this is new in the fact to me that I sang, I write lyrics. So those are two things I'm not known for, or doing something that's so deeply personal. So this is a whole new experience for me. It's almost like it has less to do with me and more to do with the listener. I don't really know how else to put it. I just feel like I'm throwing out there something which I feel is very profound and hoping that it finds a home in people's hearts and their minds, especially those who are going through very, very difficult times like I deal with. I'm in stage, as you probably know, Parkinson's has 5 stages, and I'm stage 1 is the lowest level. I almost said entry level. That's not, early stages. Yeah, early stages is 1. 5 is bad. I guess you probably would say Michael J. Fox is in 5, but I'm in stage probably 1.5 or 2. And I had a friend of mine, Dave Saker, who in less time, I've had Parkinson's for basically 5 years. He went from being diagnosed to passing away from Parkinson's related problems in less time than I've had Parkinson's. So you just never know. And it's important to make each day count. And I realize as I slide into level 2 or stage 2 that tomorrow isn't guaranteed. And that no matter how bad you think you have things, there's always going to be somebody who can have things worse. And just be appreciative of every day. Every day I get up, I put a smile on my face and I take on the day. And I'm busy. I got so many things. I got a business I run here. Got my wife and I, we have this beautiful house here in Texas, our dogs, our property. I don't have time to feel sorry for myself, and I don't want to feel sorry for myself. I get up and try to make the most out of each day. And I guess that goes into the line again about don't lose your perspective and stay effective. I try to do that every day. And that, I think, is the key for anybody who's going through hard times, is don't sit around and mope. Got to stay busy, got to stay active, got to stay focused, you got to stay healthy. I do a lot of dog walks, so I'm always moving around doing stuff, and my mind is always working. So, hey, if this disease kills me, so be it, but I'm going to go down swinging. That's that's my attitude. Which I think is really the only attitude you got to stay positive.
Absolutely. Well, it has been a pleasure to speak with you and an honor to really have you in this conversation, being so personal and honest about your life, your career, and the changes that you've been going through. Before we roll out with your song, I want to be able to have you plug your social media or any way that the fans can get in touch with you or your music. But I cannot wait to go back and look at the album A WildeStarr that you and your wife did.
Yeah, I'm not much of a social media person. I mainly just stick to Facebook, and people can find me on Facebook. It's Dave Starr, 2 R's and Star, Dave Starr 7777. That's my handle on Facebook, and they can find the video there on my Facebook page. They can go to YouTube and find the video. They can search David K. Starr or Not Dead Yet or both, and they'll find me.
Wow. Well, I'm going to play Not Dead Yet. We're going to roll out the interview with that. It has been a pleasure, and I want to thank you again.
Yeah, well, I appreciate talking with you, and I thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to tell my story. And
Yes. Well, you're making an impact, and you continue to make an impact. Thank you again, David.
thank you very much, Kathy.
Walking tall with my feet on the ground. Don't lose your perspective, stay effective, don't be messing around. Time grows short, you just got to know. Keep the flame lit, never quit, and it's on with the show. I'm alive, heart beating, grim reaper, still cheating, bulging on, no retreating. I'm alive, and I ain't dead yet. Stand tall while I feel the pain. Never really know, friend or foe, how much time there remains. Living my life, no other way. If you surrender your soul, lose your gold, then there's a price to pay. I'm alive, heart beating, grim reaper, still cheating, forging on, no retreating. I'm alive, I ain't dead yet. I'm alive, heart beating, grim reaper, still cheating, forging on, no retreating. I'm alive, and I ain't dead yet. I'm alive, heart beating, grim reaper, still cheating, forging on with no retreating. I'm alive, and I ain't dead yet. I'm alive, alive. I'm alive, give me five, we'll survive, 'cause we ain't dead yet.
You have been listening to Bringing the Darkness to the Light with Catherine Nadal, professional psychic medium, Dream Central Station, LLC. My audio editor is Al Hemberger at the Loft Recording Studios in Bronxville, New York. This is WNEW 102.7 FM radio.